Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia. Hi.
I'm Roy Candy.
I'm Mike Delicio.
Today we're taking a look at Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. This is a card game version of Terraforming Mars. It just was released. This is not the Kickstarter version of it, which is still on its way. As a side note, we played this live.
Yes.
Back in the day, so we already knew how it played. At least me and Mike did.
Right.
But we got it in, and this is a complete redesign. Although there's a lot of Terraforming Mars in it, but there's also a basis, and they've said it out loud in Race for the Galaxy. So I figured. Many of us like Race for the Galaxy. Some of us like Terraforming Mars. Let's find out what we all think. But first, here's how it plays. The game revolves around Mars, and this player board keeps track of everyone's terraforming rating, which starts at 5, but this is going to increase as the game goes by. This is your base points. The rest of your points will come from plant tiles. Each plant tile you get will be worth a point, and then various cards that you put in a tableau in front of you will give you points. This one, for example, gives 1 point. This one gives 2 points. This one has negative points because it's used as other things. This one's a variable amount of points based on this. So that's how you score points. The game is going to start with Mars completely non-terraformed, and there are these ocean tiles here. Certain actions will let you flip over an ocean tile, giving you the bonuses on it. When all the ocean tiles are flipped, when the heat here is all the way at the top, and when the oxygen level's at the top, that's the final round of the game, and that's when you'll score. Each time a player flips an ocean, increases the temperature, or increases the oxygen, their terraforming rating also goes up 1. So there's an incentive to terraform Mars. Each player has their own player board where they're going to keep track of the number of mega credits you have. So for example, here I have 16 mega credits. You'll keep track of the heat that you have and the track of the plants that you have. Players will also have production tracks. Here is how much mega credits you get, how many cards you draw, how much heat you get, how many plants you get. And then down here you have your iron and titanium, and these simply give you discounts on cards based on how high you get these. At the beginning of the game, players are going to pick a corporation, which will show you how much money you start with. So if you pick this one, for example, you start with 20 mega credits, and you also start with 1 titanium production, and then a special ability here. If I play the mining guild, you start with 27 mega credits, and I start with 1 steel production. And there are many different corporations. Players are also going to start with a handful of cards marked from 1 to 5, and these are the different actions that could be played each round. The game is going to revolve around this huge deck of cards. Players are going to start with 8 of these cards, and you will try to get more as the game goes by. But you're going to be building these cards in front of you in a tableau using these actions. Each round of the game, each player is going to pick an action from their hand. The only rule is you can't pick the same action 2 times in a row. Once everyone's picked one, we reveal them. And there are 5 possible phases. Each phase will activate if any player picks it. So if I pick 3, and you pick 2, and then the third player picks 1, then phases 1, 2, and 3 are all going to activate. But if multiple players pick the same phase, let's say this player picked 1, then the only phases they're going to activate are 1 and 3. No matter who plays the card, the phase will activate, but the bonus only goes to the person who plays the card. So what do these different phases do? Phase 1 and Phase 2 are very similar. These allow you to play the 3 different colored cards from your hand, green, blue, and red. Phase 1 lets you play green. Phase 2 lets you play blue and red. The person who plays Phase 1 gets to pay 3 less for their card, and the person who plays Phase 2 can draw a card or play 2 cards of that type. So let's take a look at these cards as you build them. Red cards are the simplest. When you play them, something happens and you're done. Like for example, this lets you move your terraforming rating up 2 spaces. This one here lets you flip an ocean tile and draw 2 cards. Now you keep them like this here because these little tokens here are tags. Some of the tags matter, like this titanium. Remember, if you have titanium, you can pay 3 less to build a card. For each, if I had 3 titanium, this card would not cost me 17 mega credits. It would only cost me 8. so you need to keep that in mind. But red tiles, you play them, you forget about them. Green cards are very similar. When you play a green card, you also will do what it says. For example, this gives me 3 plants and 3 heats. But green cards will often also usually raise your production levels. So this would raise my production of plants by 1. This one here raises my production by 1 heat for each of these planet tags I have, including this one. So green cards, again, sometimes they're worth points, which you'll worry about at the end of the game, and they have various tags on them. Those tags usually affect other cards. And you can stack your green and red cards like this. Blue cards are a little different. Some blue cards give you a special ability, like this one here. It says whenever I play a card with that arrow on it, I draw 2 cards. This one here lets me stack tokens on it as if they were microbes, which can be points at the end of the game. And some blue cards will just straight up give you actions that you can take, like this one here. Speaking of actions, that's the 3rd phase that can be done. Everyone can do all the actions on the cards they have. So for example, if I have this card in front of me, I can spend 10 mega credits to raise the temperature 1 step, and it's 5 mega credits less if I have 5 or more blue cards in play. The person who plays the action can pick one of their actions and do it twice. So I could do that twice if I had it. Also, players have standard actions. At the bottom of your board, it tells you what they are. I can pay 2 mega credits to take a plant token, which is worth a point at the end of the game, and it also raises oxygen by a level. I can pay 14 mega credits to raise the temperature by 1. I can pay 8 plants to take a tree token and raise the oxygen, 8 heat to raise the temperature 1, and I can pay 15 to flip an ocean tile. Obviously, when these things are finished, when the tracks are finished and the ocean tiles are flipped, you can no longer do these, but these are called standard projects. Phase 4 is production. You're simply going to produce everything. So if I have 3 heat here, I would produce 3 heat. If I'm at 2 cards, I'll draw 2 cards. If I'm at 2 plants, I get 2 plants. Mega credits, I'm going to get my production here, but I also get my terraforming rating. So if my terraforming rating was 10 and my token was here, I would get 13 of these. Also, if you're the person who plays the production card, you get an extra 4 mega credits. And then finally, 5 is research. It's a best way to get cards. Everyone draws 2 cards and keeps 1, discarding the other. And if you're the person who played the card, you'll draw 5 cards and keep 2. And this is just going to continue over and over and over again. And the game is really about the vast amount of cards that are in here. Cards that make your abilities better. Some cards have prerequisites. Like this Herbivores requires 5 ocean tiles to be flipped. This one requires a red temperature or warmer. And so you have to keep an eye on the requirements of when you can play cards. Many cards don't come with requirements, but some cards are more expensive. Those cards are going to do better. This, for example, makes your heat production go up by 5. It's a pretty good card, but it costs 28. It has a steel tag on it, so if you have a lot of steel, you can reduce that cost. But every game's going to be different based on the cards you play. Component-wise, I'm very happy with the cards. I think the symbology is really clear. I really love the fact that there's a symbol on the card, but it also tells you text-wise what the card does. So there's symbology and text. That's a great way to do it. We often make fun of the artwork in Terraforming Mars. The artwork here is much more cohesive and well done. I really like the quality of the cards. I like the formatting of the cards. I think that's good. The boards, I have the Target version, so these are not dual layer boards. I wish they were. These would sit in them, but it's not the end of the world. If you do knock off, what was my heat production? You can simply look at the cards you have and count it up again. The main board is my biggest problem with the game. These ocean tiles are a pain to flip over. These tracks, this one in particular, the oxygen track, this token's too big to move up it. It's hard to see where it is. But most egregious is this track here, the terraforming rating, which is the most important track of the game. And when you try to put multiple cubes on these spots, it's really hard to see where they are. This track is way too small and does affect my enjoyment of the game some. The rule book, very well done, very easy to understand. I really like how these cubes look for the 1s, 5s, and the 10s. They work well. So for the most part, the production of the game is really well done. My biggest complaint is this track here. taking a look before we jump into gameplay, did anyone have any comments about the production or your thoughts, the cards? Again, remember we're talking about the Target version here.
Sure.
I think overall, like the aesthetics of the game are a huge improvement. I know you've talked about that and stuff, but I really like the graphic design and the way the card layout and stuff works. I felt like it was pretty easy to get into and play everything, and everything was much more recognizable and just a better overall feel for the design of the cards.
Yeah, for me, the big thing is that I do like that they've got text in addition to the icons,
for sure.
right?
That's great.
And so
Every game should do that.
just is for usability, right? I think that the usability across the board is improved. Now, and you mentioned a couple issues during the overview that I echo those concerns with the score track, but generally speaking, I like the look of the game much better than the original game. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, the heat track, the oxygen track, the cubes are really big
Yeah.
on there. Also, the ocean carryover is sort of meaningless, that it's a bunch of tiles in a hexagonal grid.
Sure.
That's true. It could have been a little deck of cards.
It could be anything. It could be a small deck of cards, yes. It doesn't mean anything. It's just sort of a carryover. It's not a problem, except when you really stop and think about it. You're like, why am I flipping over these tiles? And there's always it always happens where people flip over all the easy ones. And there's one in the middle. You're like, oh
man.
come on.
That's true. There's no reason to pick one over the other.
Annoying. So that's really, really minor. Other than that, I don't love the graphic design in this. You think you liked it.
Sure, but
You're comparing it to the
comparing,
other.
for sure.
Right. Again, I'm not going to be doing that as much, except for one big point I'll make later on. But I don't think it's great graphic design. I think it's all right.
I said at the beginning this game was based a lot on Race for the Galaxy, and there's no question. I'm actually surprised more companies haven't copied the idea from Race for the Galaxy, where everyone picks an action, and if you pick it, everyone does it, but you get a bonus. There's a decent amount of games that do that, Puerto Rico and other things. This one, it's really strong in it, and I personally love that. That automatically makes me want to like a game.
Yeah, you're right. And it's interesting. It's not like something like deck building, where it's like, okay, here's a novel mechanic, and then you saw 50 deck builders within 5 years. Or actually, that's a very conservative number.
Probably.
You're right. There are a few, enough that is notable, but I'm surprised more haven't also.
I'm a huge fan of like any games that can figure out ways to minimize downtime, and I love the aspect of like everybody choosing something and doing it at the same time and utilizing all of that stuff at the same time. Anything that can get all the players engaged in the game at the same time is awesome. I mean, we busted out a game and it just felt like it just flowed because as everybody was learning everything, the turns just didn't stop, as it was always your turn to do things, you know?
I do wish it had been more different from Race for the Galaxy.
Sure.
Like, I spent half of my first play of this being like, this is so on the nose for Race for the Galaxy.
You were really hung up on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, shouldn't you try to distance yourself from a really well-known card game, also set in space, when you have phases there's the same number. They are basically the same phases. The bonuses for drawing cards, I think, might be identical. I mean,
It's
They're
not quite
at least
there.
analogous, but
They're
yes.
very close.
it's just they're so on the like. At no point was the bonus for like draw 2 cards, keep 1, and then the bonus for you picking it is also do 1 action. Oh. You get to like break the pattern a little bit.
Well, the action.
No, it's just like it's
I
the
think
same thing.
the action one feels different though.
Oh,
that
for
that
sure.
was a different thing where you play the action card and everyone does all their actions and the person who plays it can do one twice. That's my favorite part of this game. I think that's neat.
sure.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I'd be like, I can do that action twice.
Right.
That's really cool.
Yeah. But I agree with you, Roy, that the pace keeps up.
Oh yeah.
So I like
Definitely.
that about it, and I do think it's a robust system. I just, I can't help feeling like, man, if you're going to lift something up like that, change a little more, you know?
Well, with Roy mentioned the downtime being very low. That's true. But with that comes something that you may not like. It doesn't bother me at all. But realize the interaction in this game is essentially, what did you play? Okay.
Right.
I don't care one whit about anything else you're doing.
Correct.
Maybe you might move the tracks up faster than I would want you to. But with the take that cards being pulled out of the game,
Right.
the interaction is very small. It doesn't bother me at all because it's, again, very similar to Race for the Galaxy. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, the main point of interaction, I guess, like you said, would either be, paying attention to how the tracks go, but there also is that it's a little twist, but I like it, the idea of sometimes there are 2 or even 3 phases that you kind of want to fire off. And you're like, okay, what are the chances, based on what they've done, the other players have done recently, that someone else is going to pick that, and I can get the bonus I really want, but you still get to do that. Right? That's a fun thing, but it's no different than race.
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that.
I feel like it's actually less punishing in this game for those sort of actions, like trying to figure out, like, get in the player's head of, like, what action are they going to play? If they're going to play that, I'll play this. It doesn't matter as much because regardless, you're going to get something good.
You're going to get something.
And in race, it can be way more important, like with the production and the firing off of certain things in certain orders. It can be a lot more anxiety-inducing. This one, it feels more casual as you're like, oh, cool, you did production, I get some more stuff. That sort of thing.
But in Race for the Galaxy, 95% of the time, you are building 12 cards only.
Right.
In this one,
you're
depending on player count, there's way more than 12. So me not getting to build a yellow card on my turn, green card, I would go, oh well, I'll build it next turn.
Right.
That's true. That's very true. And that thing about that watching what other people are doing, especially in a 2-player game, it's slightly more predictable because you can't use the same card twice.
Exactly.
And a Race for the Galaxy, you could. So you've got one of 4 things you can do. I can look over there and go, ooh, you got no mega credits. You're making money. I'll make that money, and then I'll also do actions or whatever.
Yeah, that's the main interaction almost.
Yeah, which is fine. Yeah. You want the game to move along at a clip.
I love, the thing that I'm really excited about this is I love the diversity. I'll never play the same game of this twice. I am not tired now of Race for the Galaxy with their huge deck. Terraforming Mars with its huge deck. This has a deck that's equivalent in size, and every time I play, I'm like, this one, I'm going to go for heat. I'm going to do animals and science. I'm going to do this. And it's just fun, and those tracks and how they changed steel and titanium to just becoming discounts, that whole system works so smoothly to the point where, for me, I don't know how I'm going to play Terraforming Mars. That changing energy to heat is gone.
Yes.
They kept all the basics. Yes, there's not the whole planet out there, but there's also not a card that says build a city on this one weird spot for no reason at all. It streamlines it tremendously, but still gives me, I know you've been comparing a lot to Race for the Galaxy, but I really feel like this is a 50-50. There's a lot of Terraforming Mars here.
I agree with that. Which is my point. I said I didn't know as much about Terraforming Mars, and I wasn't going to talk about that very much except for one big thing. And this is that one big thing. I don't know a lot of people that need both.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure. No.
I feel like there's the overlap is significant enough where I could see folks replacing Terraforming Mars with this or playing it and then going, it's just not different enough.
I'm going to go even further because I played Terraforming Mars probably about the same amount as you. I've played it a few times. I haven't played it a ton. But I'm not going to play Terraforming Mars again. I'm just going to play Ares Edition. Just because it's so much easier to get to the table. It's so quick. I'm just going to continue to play this game. This is the game I want to dig into.
Yeah, well, since we're all saying that, although, I'm the same way. I'm going to choose to play this. I play Terraforming Mars quite a bit. But I didn't end up keeping it because I was kind of getting over the expansion, sea of expansion. I was like, okay, I can't keep up with this. This is one that I'm going to choose to play because it's quicker. And really quickly, bringing up something you talked about earlier about the diversity of play, it speaks to it being a tactical game.
Right.
Yes. And that's something that we had talked about off camera a little bit. I am more of a tactical gamer. I've mentioned that. I prefer tactical games over long-term strategic games. It's just my tastes. This feeds into that. I like the idea that, your starting corporation could give you some idea of what you might want to start at, but you've got to be willing to pivot, because if you're looking for specific cards in that massive deck, you may find yourself annoyed. Right?
That is one of the things that I definitely called out this being very different from Race. Race feels very strategic as you're like, I'm going for these specific developments. I'm going to try to get these kind of cards. I'm going to go long-term military strategy. This game is like you need to ebb and flow with the cards you draw. Right. You draw a card that works really good with this sort of combo. Oh, it's heat production. I'm going to build that. I'm going to start going towards some of that. Maybe you don't get more heat production cards. You got to shift and change your strategy as it goes along. So it makes it feel way more tactical as you're just reacting to the things that come into your hand and trying to make the best decisions on turn to turn.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned expansions.
Yes.
That is where I would say I would play the base game over this game, the board game, because if you add the board game's expansions, Venus and the different, if I want that more bigger, robust game,
Don't
then
even
I'm not going to
pretend
play this.
like this isn't going to have a ton of expansions though.
Sure, but I mean, as of now. But let's pretend people, you might be watching this and going, wow, you guys keep talking about these two games I never played. If you haven't played those, I'm going to highly recommend this. This is a really interesting game. If you haven't played those other two, first of all, you should have. But if you haven't, this is a solid entry. You don't need to have played any other game to play this.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you, though, Tom. For me as a gamer, I even put all those expansions in. I would still rather have this experience in a quarter or a half of the time.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I don't
those
think they're the same then. You're
They're
saying it
not,
offers
that's
the same experience. I'm saying if you want to
Very
play
close.
with the expansions, I
Yeah.
feel like that's a very different. Sending
Okay.
out the colonies, that's a very different feeling.
Okay.
Right. That's an interesting idea, though. I mean, now we've talked quite a bit to folks who know Race for the Galaxy, who know Terraforming Mars. I feel like they are well informed at this point because they have great points of reference, and we have told you how this is. It's strategic versus tactic, length, downtime, all, spatial awareness being a thing that's gone. So what happens when you talk to people that don't know those two games? I guess the main thing I would say right off the bat is this is heavier than it looks.
Sure.
Right.
This is a complex game. It also is, I think, shorter than Terraforming Mars. I wouldn't necessarily say it's short.
No.
I think the
Yeah, for
60
sure.
minutes on the cover is very forgiving.
For people who know the game
It is not a 60-minute 4-player game.
No.
Unless everyone really knows the game.
Right.
Right. My last play of this was a 2-player game. There was a lot of building up. It took approximately 2 hours, which is fine. That was enjoyable. I liked it. But 60, even for 2, you're booking it. You're kind of because you don't have 12 cards at the end. I had like a lot of cards in front of me at the end.
It does scale weirdly, right? Because the game ends when Mars is terraformed, and those numbers they're going to happen faster with 4 people. I don't have a problem with that because I felt the engine. I just played a 4-player game of this a couple days ago, and I had a lot of cards out.
Nice.
So I didn't feel like, I was cheated out of that. But I think I would prefer it with 2 players because I want my engine to be big.
I know. I just really want to build this gigantic,
Can I take
awesome
30 heat a
combo.
turn? Let's do it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what do you get? What's your final thoughts here?
I really, really enjoy this game. It does a lot of things that I really like. I love building up combos. I love low downtime in game. I love being able to do things simultaneously. I'm giving this an 8.5. I think it is an excellent game, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm excited that it's easily available for people to get the game. I'm excited for more people to play it, and I'm really excited to play the game even more. And there's a lot of replayability, I think, out of the base box, and I know there's going to be even more coming for it in the future, probably with expansions and stuff like that. But just based on this base game, 8.5.
All right, Z?
I'm giving it an 8. I wish it looked better. I don't like the look is a little sort of like, I wish it looked more modern, maybe. It still looks too much like Terraforming Mars, which was never a looker. And it's a few years old now. But yeah, everything we keep talking about mechanically is robust. A big one for me, that discovery. Because there's a billion cards in there.
Oh, for sure.
So that discovery is going to stay very high. Where I'm drawing cards and I feel like several games in, I'm like, ooh, that's cool.
I think every card is different,
A card
too,
I might have seen and ignored earlier or just haven't seen yet. And so there is a nice sense of discoverability over multiple plays.
Yeah.
And then after that, once you get to know the deck well, then you can just kind of drill in a little bit deeper. So It's a robust game. Is it innovative? No, not if you know the other two we've been referencing. Is it pretty? No. It's a good game. A thinky game, a long game, but a good game.
Yeah, and just for context, it is, I agree, it's not an easy game and it's not a long game, but if we are comparing it to the base game of Terraforming Mars, I prefer this in every way. Right. It's quicker, it's easier, I feel like, and it feels just much smoother.
Super fast setup.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I will always choose to play this over any iteration, honestly, of Terraforming Mars, because to me, I felt like beyond the base game, I didn't love the expansions. That's just for me on a personal level. So this checks off a lot of boxes for me, and I'm giving it an 8.5. I think it's excellent. I really do like it.
I'm going to go a little higher than that. If it wasn't for that stupid scoring track, I would give this a 10.
Wow.
That's how much I like it. So I'm giving it a 9.5. Taking it a half point for that, and I'm just going to have to go to Etsy and find a proper track or something. But Race for the Galaxy, one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
Terraforming Mars, one of my favorite games. I mean, like, in my top 50, both of them.
Right.
So this combination, yes, I sit there and I play it and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the same as both of those. Yay! I mean, if you make my two favorite foods and put them together, I'm going to be very happy.
But it does feel familiar, I bet, even the first time you played.
Sure.
And that's a consideration.
Yes.
You know, again, if you are an owner of both of those, you got to consider that.
But that doesn't happen to me. Like when I played Kalis, the card game, it was like, oh, this is Kalis, the board game, is a card game. Okay.
Yeah.
This one felt like, oh, they got it better this time.
Sure.
And I like the mechanisms. I like how fast it is. I like the building up a different combination. When they inevitably make the app version of this, I'll
man.
play that a ton, you know? It's going to be a game of like, ooh, what combo can I do now? This is solid for me, and I'm excited to play more of it. So, yes, I kind of felt like I was going to like it going in. I read the rules, and I knew this is good. And every time I play this, I enjoy it. It's fast. I think, like I said, I'm going to prefer it with 2 or 3. Just that's the exact same way I feel about Race for the Galaxy.
Right.
The same thing, but in the end, it's a good project, and well, that's what I got. So that's Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia.
I'm Roy Kennedy.
I'm Mike Delicio.
Have fun on the Red Planet.